Welcome to Tuesday Talks, your educational podcast helping parents become strong advocates for their kids and teachers to make big impacts in the classroom. Here we go. Hey. Welcome to another Tuesday Talks. If you are a returning listener, I really appreciate you joining me for these episodes. If you're a new listener, welcome. Glad to have you. I hope that you're ready for another fantastic episode today. This is something that I've been thinking about. Something that I think is really interesting about education. When we think about education, we talk a lot about partnerships, right? School and home partnerships, teacher and parent partnerships, working together for the child, right? For the student. But if we're honest, most of what we call partnership is in education today, it's surface level at best. Just think about that for a moment because somewhere along the way, family engagement, which was a huge buzzword in education, it really got reduced to things like parents volunteering at school, parents attending open house, parents showing up for conferences, parents sending in snacks for a class party. And listen, those things aren't bad, but let's just be real. That is not a partnership. That's participation. And participation without purpose or without depth or without a shared responsibility, it does not move outcomes for kids the way we think it does. So then the question really becomes, what does a real partnership actually look like when it comes to student success? Because it's not just involvement, it's not just visibility, but it is about alignment. Because here's what I've seen over and over again as a speech therapist, an educator, and someone who's worked on all sides of the system. When things go wrong for a child, it's rarely just about one person. It's a breakdown in connection, it's breakdowns in communication, there's breakdowns in shared understanding. And that's exactly why I created something that I'm introducing to you today. And I'm super excited about it, the Student Success Partnership Model. Now, listen, I'm not going to go through the whole framework in lots of details today, but I'm going to give you a lens because once you see it, once you see this Student Success Partnership Model, you won't be able to unsee it. So, today's episode, we're going to explore the idea of partnership differently. We're going to challenge some norms. We're going to rethink what engagement actually means. And we're going to start shifting the way we see the roles of schools, teachers, and families, because at the center of all of this is a child. And that child doesn't need more programs, they don't need more meetings. They need aligned adults that are supporting and guiding their learning. So if you've ever felt like you're doing your part, but something still isn't clicking, you're showing up, but you're not being heard, or you're watching a child fall through the cracks of a system that should be working, then this episode today is for you. So I encourage you to stick around through the end of the episode, share this with a friend, another parent friend, a teacher, colleague, because we are really going to dive into the student success partnership model because at its core, it really is a framework that is built on three non negotiable pillars: accessibility, authenticity, and accountability. I'm going to say those three again: accessibility, authenticity, and accountability. And I want you to think of these not as buzzwords, but as conditions that must be met for a child to truly succeed. So let's start with the first one: accessibility. It's not just can you get into the building, right? It's do families have real access to information? Do teachers have access to the full story of the child? Are systems understandable or are they intentionally complex? Because when access is limited, people disengage or they get pushed out. And a lot of times that's when you see parents check out, maybe even see the teacher check out when that accessibility is limited. That next pillar is authenticity. And authenticity asks a deeper question: are we showing up honestly in these partnerships? Or are we just performing roles? Because a teacher who can't be real, a parent who doesn't feel safe to speak up, or maybe the parent isn't being real, A system that values compliance over connection, that's not partnership. That's straight up survival mode. Everybody is out to protect themselves and their role. And that is what can really hold a kid back from success because we're not all sitting at the table authentically sharing our perspective, our point of view, our thoughts, our opinions to build up a conversation that could help a child succeed more in school. And then lastly, the third pillar is accountability. And this is one that people can kind of get uncomfortable with because accountability means everyone has a role and everyone has responsibility and everybody has to own their impact on the child's outcome. It's not about blame. You have heard me say that on here many, many, many times. It is not about blame. It is about shared ownership. Shared ownership. And when these three pillars are aligned, accessibility, authenticity, and accountability, that's when you move from we tried to we made it work. And I want you to really sit with this question. If what we've been calling partnership isn't actually partnership, then what is it? And most importantly, why does it feel like even when everyone is doing their part, things still aren't working for some kids? So I want to talk about this illusion of partnership. I want to paint a picture for you. I feel like Sophia from The Golden Girls, which is one of my favorite shows. Let me paint a picture. You've got a teacher who's sending emails, tracking data, following the curriculum. You've got a parent who's showing up to the meetings, asking questions, trying to support at home. And on paper, that looks like a partnership. Everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. But in reality, the teacher is thinking, I'm doing everything I can. Why isn't the parent reinforcing this at home? The parent is thinking, I don't fully understand what's happening at school, but I really don't feel comfortable asking questions either. And the system is just moving. Schedules, policies, procedures, timelines, pacing guides, state testing, the system is moving. So now you've got three people all involved, all participating, all trying, but they are not aligned. And when there's no alignment, kids fall through the cracks. And it's not because people don't care, but because the structure of the partnership isn't strong enough to hold the weight of the child's needs. I feel like I've said on here before, everybody who is involved in that child's life, the school, the teacher, the parent, they all want good for the kid. I can't think of one school system that was developed so kids would fail. Like that was their unique intention from the onset that kids would fail. I can't think of one teacher that I've ever met, interacted with, who took the job because they wanted kids to fail. And I can't think of one parent who gets up and gets their kid to school because they want their kid to fail. It is not because people just don't care. It's just because the structure of that partnership, it isn't strong enough to hold the weight of what that kid needs. So if we start from that central idea, everybody who is involved with these kids, teachers, parents, schools, they all want the kid to succeed. We have to look at what that partnership looks like so that we can help build a foundation strong enough to support that child's needs. And this is the shift that I need us to make. Stop asking who's not doing their part. Because I've said in these meetings before, and it's like a detective scene. Like, where's the guilty party? Who didn't do their part? Oh, the parents are doing stuff at home. Oh, because it's your fault the kid isn't succeeding. Oh, the teacher fell short on something. Oh, it's definitely their fault that the kid is not succeeding. Oh, the school put too many kids in the classroom. Oh, it's definitely their fault the kid isn't succeeding. We got to stop asking who's not doing their part, because really, when we identify that person and the shift is made, it's not like this miraculous change happens. I've witnessed parents advocate for their kids, which I'm in full support of. I've seen parents advocate for their kids to be moved out of a specific teacher's classroom because, in their mind, the teacher isn't doing what they need to do for their kid to succeed. It's very finger pointing. They move the kid to a different classroom. Guess what? Kid has the same issues because it wasn't a teacher problem, it was a partnership problem. And so, moving from that question of who's not doing their part and starting to ask what's missing from the partnership, that is what will spark real change in how we are thinking about what partnership actually means. Because real partnership, it's not about being present, it's about being connected. It's not about checking boxes, it's about shared understanding. And it's not about, well, I did my part, you do yours. No, it's about how do we move together for this child. And I'm going to say something that might challenge some folks. You can have high involvement and still have weak partnership. Sit with that for just a second. You can have high involvement and still have a weak partnership because that means more meetings won't fix it, more emails won't fix it, more programs won't fix it if the foundation isn't right. And that foundation is where those three pillars come in: accessibility, authenticity, and accountability. The pillars are in real life, they kind of look like some of these examples that I'm going to give you. I want to bring this out of theory for a second and really into real life. So, accessibility, that shows up in ways we don't always name. It's the parent who gets a 10-page evaluation report and doesn't understand half of it. It's the teacher who doesn't know what's happening at home because no one ever asked the right questions. It's the system that uses language like progress monitoring data, benchmarks, intervention tiers, but never pauses to make sure everyone understands what that actually means. And here's the truth: if people don't understand, they cannot fully engage. You can think about that in your own life, day-to-day experience. If you don't understand, you don't fully engage. You might not lean in to find more understanding. You just disengage. And when you can't engage, you either step back or get labeled as uninvolved. And that can be on the parent side, the teacher side, or the school side. Now let's take it a step further. Authenticity, that second pillar. This is where things can get uncomfortable because this is where we ask, are we being real in these partnerships? Or are we just saying what sounds good? This looks like a teacher who wants to say, I'm overwhelmed, but they don't say it. A parent who has concerns about their kid, but is holding back. Meetings where everything sounds polished, but nothing feels honest. And here's what's happening when authenticity is missing. You get really polite conversations, but not productive ones. You get agreement, but you don't get alignment. If you're a teacher and you set in those meetings for your child who may be receiving special education service or maybe some interventions, you're a parent who's set in those meetings and you finish and everybody shakes hands, signs papers, walks out, and you're like, I don't know what the heck just happened. What did we say about this point? And wait, how did they say they're going to address this? Because those meetings are polished, they are rehearsed. And if you're the parent, you better believe that that school and the teacher, the administrator, they all got on the same page before you ever walked into the building. You can bank on that. So you can't solve a problem that nobody is fully naming. Name the problem. Label the thing what it is. I'm concerned about X. I don't know why Y is happening. I don't know. You have to name the thing in order to solve the problem. And then the last pillar, accountability. This is the pillar that really shifts everything because accountability is where we move from what's happening to what are we doing about it. We can have meetings to talk about what's happening, but accountability asks the question, what are we doing about it? And let me be clear, I said it before, accountability is not about blame. It's not the teacher didn't do this, the parent didn't do that, the school didn't do that. That's not accountability. That's deflection. Those are different things. Accountability sounds like, here's my role in this. Here's what I can commit to. Here's how we'll follow through. Accountability is what turns conversation into action. And then here's where things really get interesting because Most of the challenges we see in education, they're not random, they are patterns. A lot of the issues that we see in schools or with kids and their education, it's not random. We've seen it. Same stuff, same story, different day. They're patterns. So let me show you what I mean. If we have high accountability and low authenticity, so we have high accountability, everybody's naming their roles, saying what they can commit to. We have low authenticity. People aren't really saying how they really feel. Everything gets documented, everything is tracked, but nobody feels safe to speak up if things aren't going right, if outcomes aren't being met, and things look good on paper, but the real issues, they stay hidden. Think about this. You have high authenticity, but really low accountability. You have everybody sitting at the table being real, but really low accountability. Everybody's deflecting. That ain't on me. That's not on me. So everybody ends up feeling heard because we're all sharing from the heart. Everybody feels supported, but nothing actually changes. So when you leave the meeting, you feel good, but the outcomes stay the same. And who's left? The kid just running in place, basically. And then we have low accessibility. So think about accessibility, making sure parents have access to things, teachers have access to understanding, all the things. So when you have low accessibility, people are confused. Information is unclear. So instead of leaning in, they check out. And this is the part that I need you to hear. Most breakdowns in education are predictable when one of these three pillars is missing. And so now the question becomes, what if we stopped focusing on the people and started focusing on the structure? What if instead of saying, this parent isn't involved, we ask, is the system accessible to them? Instead of the teacher isn't communicating, we ask, is there space for authentic communication? And instead of saying, nothing is changing, we ask, where is accountability breaking down? Because once you shift the question, you shift the outcome. You can't fix student success without fixing the partnership that supports it. And that brings us right back to where we started, this idea of partnership. It has to evolve because what we've been doing, it's not enough. Not for today's kids, in today's classrooms, with today's families. It's just not. It's not enough. And I know you can think of an example, whether you're a parent or a teacher or a grandparent, caregiver, you can think of an example that would support that statement. It's not enough. What we're doing is not enough. We're pouring resources in, bringing programs in, and it's not enough. Kids are still falling behind. Whether it's academic, the social emotional, kids are still falling behind. And so, what I really want to do is leave you with this. Think about one child, just one, your own, your niece, your nephew, one kid in your class, and ask yourself, is there true accessibility here? Is there real authenticity here? Is there a shared accountability here? Because when those three things align, that's when everything shifts. One child, three partners, endless possibilities. And some of these pillars may be challenging because it does require a component of vulnerability. Schools don't want to say they dropped the ball because that's when all the lawsuits happen. Okay. They don't want to say that because we've created this movement in society where the school didn't do what they were supposed to. Okay, sue them, get them to send them to a private school. We get over to the private school and the same issues happen. Maybe the kid starts to do better, but as they get older, you see some more breakdowns because there wasn't alignment in the partnership. It was just finger pointing. Oh, it's your fault they didn't do good. No, it's your fault they didn't do good. You got teachers sitting in their classroom talking to themselves on the way home, sitting in the teacher workroom, complaining about parents and how they're not doing this. And if they only did that, this would be better. There is a lack of safe space for teachers to feel comfortable speaking up, to say, you know what? I'll tell you why the grades aren't improving. Your kid is in the back of the classroom with their head laid down for most of the morning. Are they getting good rest at home? Because as a teacher, when you ask that question, a parent could take offense, right? What do you mean, are they getting good rest? And I make sure my kid's in the bed. And then the parent goes into defensive mode. But really, the teacher was just trying to have an authentic conversation to figure out why this kid's in the back of the class with their head down for most of the morning. But not having that safe space to speak in an authentic manner can really hinder how teachers can communicate with you. Because I'll tell you one true thing, that as an educator, if you speak freely and authentically once and you get what you feel like attacked in response, you're likely to not do it again, at least not with that particular parent. And I think that's a shame. I think that that's a shame. That comes back to the shared accountability. It cannot all be on the teacher. It cannot all be on the school, and it cannot all be on the parent. There is a shared accountability. So just think back to those three pillars: accessibility, authenticity, accountability. When those three things align, that is when everything shifts. So I just want to give you just a little taste of it. Something this student success model and the framework that goes with it is something I'm very passionate about. If this resonated with you in any way, feel free to leave me a comment, share, leave a review if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Be sure to just check in and let me know how it resonates with you. Share it with a parent, a teacher, with someone who's trying but feels like something is missing. Because when the adults get aligned, then kids can stop falling through the cracks. The adults have to get aligned in supporting. You're not getting aligned to do the work for the kid. You're getting aligned so that you can provide a great foundation of support and guidance in a collective sense to help the child succeed. Thank you so much for joining me for another Tuesday Talks. Again, like, share, all the things. Let me know what you thought about today's episode, and I will see you for the next one. Bye. Be sure to share this episode and join me next week for a brand new Tuesday Talks. See ya.